I move that we approve the January 4th meeting minutes.
So approved. Okay, so we'll begin our agenda, but first we'll be talking to the folks at Lake Drive, not Lake Drive, sorry, Abrick Road. I know there's a bunch of concerns and questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer a lot of them and give you some direction. So is there a representative that's going to be talking? Paul?
Yeah, I'm here on Zoom.
Yep.
And
see you.
I think Merrill Sanderson might be showing up if he's able to get there in person, but I can do it. I'll do it from here.
Sure.
Okay. Maybe I'll just start by a quick intro, sort of where we are in this process. Some neighbors started talking about the sewer line partially because the bridges are being replaced, and so we were thinking about all of that. Then we now have a group of neighbors that's probably 19 or 20 or so, all in the same group email, and emails have been back and forth and all that kind of thing. But there are 10 or 11 houses that are interested in, are in favor of, installing a sewer line here. And we've projected a cost of approximately, this is assuming that the individuals share the cost of the engineering installation, of about $15,000 per house. And that breaks down, the first half of it would be for engineering and installation, and the other half would be for each individual's work to hook up and pay town fees, etc. And it's a complicated process, but we have good people here. We have 4 lawyers actually in our neighborhood, and a couple of people or several people that are good with finances. And we also have an engineer, Miles Moffett, who works for Guy and Bond in Westfield and has designed these kind of systems himself. So he answers some of our questions for us. And we've contacted 2 engineers for proposal. That would be White Engineering and Foresight, and they each gave us an estimate of their costs. One was more expensive than the other. The more affordable one was Foresight, which was $20,000, and White Engineering was more like $29,000. For the moment, we've put that on hold because we don't know exactly where we're going next. So we have 4 main areas of interest to talk about or ask questions about today. The first is the technical approach. The second is how to deal with the bridges. And the third is whether we can tap into a neighbor's private line. And the fourth is what kind of help we might get from the town. So let's go to the first one. That's the best approach. And the first question is gravity feed versus using the E1 pumps. When I was walking my dog, I realized that almost the entire neighborhood is downhill to the bridges on Averitt Road. In other words, coming from the reservoir, it's all downhill. Coming down Train Hill, it's all downhill. And the same thing for Cherry Bounce. And there's only a slight rise here somewhere near where the water company is, but otherwise it's all downhill. So it seems like, a gravity system, assuming that we can deal with the bridges, might be the more affordable one, at least for not so much for the installation, but for the neighbors, in that they wouldn't have to buy the E1 pumps at every single house. And do you have thoughts on that? I was told at the outset that, everybody would have an E1 pump, and that would be that. But since it's all downhill, doesn't gravity make some kind of sense?
I think that, I think you'd be better off getting a point of view from an engineer on that.
Yeah, I realize a lot of these questions.
At the moment, there's too many unknown variables that no one really knows about. Number one, an invert elevation, an accurate invert elevation out at Route 183 for the sewer.
Yeah.
Sill levels, sill heights, and ports of exit of the existing sewer pipes have to be taken into account.
Yeah.
I think from an installation standpoint, it's going to be more money. If it can even be done. It's a long way and you have to maintain a 2% slope the whole way. So, you know, I know that it seems like it's downhill to Route 183, but I couldn't give you an answer at the
Okay.
moment. And
All
that's what you're going to have to hire an engineer for to
Yeah.
figure. Okay.
Right, I realize that a lot of these questions would be, you know, for the
Yeah,
engineer.
I think you got to understand one thing, Paul, is exactly that. I mean, we'll listen and try to interpret and help you as best we can. But unless there's an engineer on board that can come up with an idea to present to us and you, you know, we're just sitting here essentially listening.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Well, maybe you can answer this question. If you can combine gravity feed with some E1 pumps, in other words, in places where you have to have an E1 pump, because there are a couple of houses that would have to have an E1 pump to get up to the line if it were a gravity feed.
Yes, you can do that.
It's been done before.
We have sections of town where it's combined.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, obviously, you know, the fewer pumps it would be, the better, because it's, you know, expensive to put in the pump and they don't last forever, so you have to replace it after 10 years plus or whatever. And I'm aware of the fact, having talked to Miles Moffett, our engineer neighbor, that, you know, installing a gravity feed line is more expensive than installing the low pressure line, or whatever you call it, with the E1 pumps. And then that gets into the question of whether you're going to go uphill and train hill. That involves the bridges. That is, the town. Now we're going into topic number 2 here. The town chose not to put a sleeve in the bridges because of expense, to provide for a sewer line. Although, in conversation with Steve Mack, I think it was, the engineer from Foresight, he said there might be another way to do it. I was told that, you know, if we have the pumps and you can go underneath the stream and come back up. Miles said that would probably be expensive, and I talked to the foreman when they're building the bridges down here, and he said they had a devil of a time. They pound metal sheets in, big pieces of metal to sort of hold the earth in place, and they broke a bunch of equipment trying to do that, because the ground is such heavy clay. So, you know, drilling under the stream might not be possible. But one of the engineers said there might be another way to do it. Even if there's not a sleeve in the bridge, they could still run a sewer line on the side of the bridge or something like that. I forget exactly. I don't know if you want to explain any of that, but
I mean, when we were talking about the bridges, I think it was always assumed that it was all gonna be low pressure up there because of the depth of the sewer main. I don't think it's all that deep on 183. And by the time you got gravity out to those bridges are gonna be, they would kind of be in the way if you wanted to try to get gravity. So it was always assumed by us that it was gonna be, you know, a force main, a low pressure sewer system with E1. So
okay.
putting sleeves in the bridge, I don't know where they would have actually have been, you know, and they would have to all be insulated. And I think it would have been an engineering study would have had to have been done on trying to get gravity for that whole street or.
Yeah, I think the engineer, Steve Mack, engineered the bridges, and he said that his design included the sleeve originally, but it was taken out of the plan by the town because of expense. Or
I
he
never-
said it was because of expense. I don't know, maybe it was because.
Nothing,
We never saw that.
we never had any input in that, Paul.
I think the selectmen made that choice, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, One way to avoid the bridges altogether goes into the next topic that we have here. One of the neighbors, specifically at 8 Train Hill, has a private 8-inch gravity sewer line. He's been approached, I think, previously about the possibility of sharing that with some neighbors, but he was not inclined to do so. If we do go with the pumps and go uphill, so to speak, up Train Hill, we could go into, if we could get the use of his line, we could go into that line, which would avoid the whole bridge question altogether. And one of the 4 lawyers, Mel Warshaw, sent out an email. He had done a little research and found that the town has the right to take that line by eminent domain. I don't know if, has the town ever taken lines by eminent domain in this kind of situation?
I've been on for a long time, Paul, and I don't remember ever taking a line. Nope.
Yeah. Well, you know, if it were deemed that the best way to go was up Train Hill, well, being able to tap into his line would prevent having to install a line for the distance from number 5 Train Hill on down the hill until it gets to 183 down there.
We approached him, we sent out a letter approximately 3 months ago requesting that we would like all lines in town to be turned over to us. And we have a bylaw now that after a year it gets turned over to us. But when he installed that, it was not in place. And he responded, as he did with you, that he's not interested.
Yeah, I have not spoken to him. In fact, I've never actually met the guy. So I don't know what to, you know, I don't know where we're going to go next with that one. But my understanding is that from a legal perspective, the town has the ability to take it by eminent domain, in which case there wouldn't be any discussion. You just do it, you know.
The town would have to pay though, right? You'd have to pay some kind of
Well, there'd be some legal fees involved in that, for sure.
in market, or I don't know, like when you take
I
land.
haven't dealt exactly with a sewer line, but typically if you're taking a property, you still end up paying the fair assessed value of the property
Yeah.
that you're taking by eminent domain. It's not that you're taking it for no cost.
Right.
And that obviously would go to a town meeting.
It would have to go to a town meeting and then a decision has to be made. And whenever you get in eminent domain, you got to prove the public good. You just can't take it for any reason, but the public good could be explained as this is the best option to expand this. So.
I will add to that, when I was talking about that situation to Steve Mack from Foresight Engineering, he said, well, that's rather unusual that, you know, an individual has a private sewer that runs underneath a town roadway. You know, in his experience, that is not a typical thing by any means. So, and whichever way the sewer goes, the direction of the flow, that is, there are several houses up there at Train Hill that could hook in to his line by gravity and not have to have the pumps that come down this way. At this point, we've told the engineers to just kind of sit and wait until we see what happens next. But we've had conversation with Patrick White, who kind of surprised me, frankly, by saying that he feels, and I think he felt like he had support on the select board for that position, that the town should really pay for the engineering and installation of new sewer lines. And he foresees extending the lines in a number of places, and he specifically mentioned going around the bowl from 37 Interlake and the former DeSisto school site up to Cropalo and back around so you get the whole Stockbridge Bowl area and so forth. And he also said, I think, quite poignantly, that he feels that sewers should not be available only to the people that have the means to afford to install their own line or share that cost with others in their neighborhood, but it should be available to everybody. And then there's an environmental component that, you know, a lot of places, like right here, we're very close to streams and rivers and lakes, and so, you know, water quality is has to be factored in. And we'd like to work with the town to see what the possibilities are for that kind of town funding. My personal feeling is that this is getting complicated, and it's way above my pay grade to try to figure out how to make this work. If the town were to take over, we'd be in a much better place. We also know that we have somewhere between 4 and 6 neighbors who have said that they're not interested in funding the installation of the line, either because it's too much of an expense or because just on principle they feel like the town should be the one that pays for such a thing. But if the town were to install the line, those people would at some point hook up.
No kidding.
So as far as working with the selectmen, would you suggest that the Water Sewer Commission be the one to bring this up with them, or should we do it, or should we both do it?
One thing I think we should say from the outset that all of this funding and this is nothing that we know about. We have not been approached by the selectmen or Patrick concerning this at all. We have our meetings once a month and we don't hear this. I think he's speaking as a private citizen instead of a member of the select board. Michael, do you want to just say a little bit more about the support of this? Do the selectmen know about this even?
The selectmen have begun looking at priorities over the next 1, 3, and 5 years. One of the items that was brought up was, you know, water and sewer infrastructure as a priority of the town. But when we were discussing this, it was not in any way specific projects. It was just general overview of the town of what we need to do.
And I'm sure that if there was an issue of moving forward on this, as far as timelines and stuff, that the selectmen would come to us. We've always had an excellent working relationship with the selectmen. We have not talked to them either. That's why all this is very new to us.
And like I said, there was no discussion of specific projects. It was just a very global discussion of, you know, that there's old water lines, sewer lines, there's stormwater, there's all these different issues that would fall under water and sewer. But like I said, we were talking in the global big picture. As far as getting into some specifics, you know, there are all types of options that can be explored. I've seen where the community has taken over a project like this, but what usually ends up happening in those cases is, since it's benefiting only a specific area of the town and not the town as a whole, that the town or city would then file a betterment and basically tax the project onto those homes. So it become part of their tax bill. You know, that's an option. I've seen where it's been installed, sewer lines have been installed, and then the hookup costs are for people that come on later, are established by individual areas so that you could have a higher cost if people don't hook on now when they go to hook on later. There's a cost incurred instead of your standard cost. So, you know, that could just be looking at how many people could potentially hook up and then figuring out the cost and that. And then there's where somebody puts in, a lot of times you see this around subdevelopments and stuff, but this could be around this project where somebody goes to the town and an area says they want to install the lines. You enter in what's called a covenant before they actually install it, where the town agrees to take over the maintenance and ownership of it afterwards. And a lot of times you see that in subdevelopments where the person's gonna put in a road, septic, water, everything up to the standards of the town. And then once the development is done, then the community takes it over, but you can do that in this case. So there's a whole bunch of reasons you would look at any one of those. Sometimes, the betterment can be the best option, sometimes, the individuals or others, And then whether or not, town funds or coming out of general funds to benefit one specific town area, when a good section of town isn't covered by water and sewer, whether that should come out of the water and sewer users or the people looking on, or whether it should be paid by all the taxpayers, because that's when, when you talk about going back to the town, you're talking about placing on everybody's bill. So those are the things that have to be discussed. So, this is coming up now for discussion, and, we can look into these issues and get more. I don't have answers for this evening.
But don't you think though, when moving forward at all on this project, they have to get an engineering study done?
Yeah. I mean.
And
unless-
Patrick is saying that they're going to be, the town is going to be paying for that
The only way I
too.
can look at it, I would think that the town would approach it first, is if we were gonna take the engineering and look at some type of betterment to be filed against the homeowners that are doing this, so.
One thing that I'd like to add, for the last, I don't know, it's been 10 to 15 years, I've been kind of keeping track of income and expenses on our budgets, and for the commission and for the selectmen, and so we can all kind of look at things. And we're a small town, we're a small system, we're not we're this massive system that we pull in $1 million a year. Sewer right now has a big expense of $750,000 for the Park Street sewer pump station. The sewer users fund $100,000 a year for their part of the project we did almost 20 years ago for their portion of the loan payment. And surplus for sewer right now, once these loan payments are made this year, might be $100,000 left over. And we're staring down the barrel of what, $100,000 in I&I study repairs that the DEP has mandated for all sewer systems in the entire state, where, there's a lot of stuff we've got to fix out in the system before we just start expanding everywhere. And we also have to keep in mind, once you get to a certain point in that, expanding, you're going to have to upgrade the wastewater plant again when we start getting the more flow in. So, on the water side of things, I have a spreadsheet. I know every street, we've got $8.5 million of pipe to replace. Some of it's over 130 years old, and it's still being used right now. That's another thing that's going to be hitting the sewer surpluses. That kind of thing has to be done for the sewer system now. It's an asset plan coming out mandated by DEP. So there's so many expenses coming down the road with very little surplus. And we try to adjust the rates accordingly on an annual basis and not gouge and go crazy with them. Our rates are very, very low compared to other towns, and comparably, or comparable to some other towns, but they're lower for the most part. And we just hate to, raise the rates crazily and to get a lot of this stuff done. But we're just a small little town with, trying to make $100,000 to $150,000 a year. And when you start digging in the ground and putting sewer and water in the ground, Church Street, if you will remember, we did 5-6 years ago, that road was 3,100 feet and of pipe in the ground, and it cost it was $800 and something thousand. So sewer, because with water, it's beautiful. You dig it 5 feet deep, put the pipe in, but sewer, you're running grades, you're, all over the place. So it's a lot more technical. But I think we've got so much work to do with what we have in the ground now. It's very hard for, us all to think that we need to start expanding and the town needs to pay for all these expansions to go out. we've got a lot of work to do in the ground of stuff that's 130 years old, 120 plus years old. Last year was a wet year and we certainly noticed it at the wastewater plant. Let's put it that way. Just so everybody can kind of get a gist of the financing of it, of how we run the surplus. And I just want everybody to realize, you know, there's money coming in, but it's sometimes it goes out just as fast as it is coming in with all the stuff we have to do.
Well, thank you. I guess it's a continuing discussion, and I'll reach out to the selectmen and see what they suggest we do next, if you think that's a good idea.
I do, because again, I think if anything else has to happen, Paul, we, again, reiterating the same thing, it needs to have that engineering study.
Yeah.
You've got to have that on board before anything else moves forward.
Right. And would the town pay for the engineering study?
We don't have any money for that. It's not budgeted.
Yeah. So that would be shared by the neighbors
Yes.
before we even know what we're doing. Huh. Okay.
As far as our board is concerned, Paul.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just taking notes here.
Sorry.
Even though I have somebody else taking notes. Okay, well, we very much appreciate your time and advice, and we'll be in touch as we move forward.
Well, we appreciate the updates that you've been giving us, and good luck, and as you know, keep us informed.
I noticed that you're recording the meeting here. How does one access that?
CTSB.
I'm sorry?
CTSB.
Yeah, just go to CTSB's website and all the town meetings or town selectmen.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, online, on their
Yeah,
website.
they're all
Okay.
online. Yep.
Usually a couple days after the meeting, it's up.
Okay. Because some of what you were saying, I wouldn't mind hearing again.
You just put it in the chat, ctsbtv.org.
Okay.
It's in the chat.
CTSB-TV.
And if you ever want to call Paul or whatever, just, you know, we're around all the time. So just give a call down to the plant. And if you have any questions or need clarification, we're always there.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm in late, but you may have covered this, but can I make a couple of comments here?
Sure, Merrill's here.
Hi. Well, I don't know if you've seen me. Merrill Sanders on Train Hill Road. One is more global and the other is more specific. And correct me if you've covered all these areas. But they deal generally with the financing issue that I hear, you know, in the last few minutes that I've been here is central to this. But even for us, and the engineering studies that you're talking about, one of the central points is which way does it go? And that leads us back to the existing partial line in Train Hill Road. I know the board has made efforts to see whether that could be donated to the town. And on a more micro issue, possibly, one of the issues, of course, that came up in the discussion here was the town does have the right of eminent domain. However, I would not like to see anyone lose their property without just compensation. What I might suggest is that either, I don't know, it's you folks or the selectmen might ask that maybe town council could make another stab at this issue with a, you know, reasonable offer of some kind. I don't know how that might work. That would be the micro issue. The macro issue, and I get back to the money issue, is that, again, look up at the federal level, we're hearing everything about Build Back Better and replacing lead in the lines. Is there someone looking at grants that are out there, either state or federal, for this kind of infrastructure issue? I assume that there is, but again, we would ask that that be explored from the town perspective to see whether there's some governmental money and assistance financially here.
Yeah, I think, Merrill, that's something that the group needs to approach the selectmen about, so that the selectmen, so that they can ask them those issues. What do you think, Mike? I mean, wouldn't that be the route to go?
You know, we get notifications, myself, Mike, Tony, about grant opportunities and other things. They tend to be more global to the town, such as lead reduction and water systems and things like that. So, you know, we can obviously keep our eyes open for any of those that are coming forward. Right now, there are some items within ARPA funding and others that are specific toward water systems and stormwater systems and public health as a whole. So, you know, we can look at what funding sources are available and what type of projects the town's going to take on. But I know we've already identified a number of projects from our stormwater system in downtown to Park Street and, you know, things like that that we need to address. Plus, like Mike said, 100-year-old lines in the system itself that need to be addressed. So it just becomes a balancing act of.
So you have some stuff on your plate already.
Yeah.
Okay. But
And
again,
still present to the select board, you know, a project to see.
Well, again, if it's coming from you folks, I mean, if we have your support for this, that would be very helpful.
well, I mean,
Merrill, one of the questions I have was, what's driving this? What's the urgency to get onto sewer? I mean, are there distressed systems out there, septic systems?
We'll have a better handle on that.
The answer to that is yes. I'm not sure the extent of it, but my immediate neighbor, Jeff Wheeler at number 6, has had trouble with his system, and he was actually the one that kind of got this whole thing going because because he's having that problem. We also have a property recently sold to Joe DeGeorgis, and he's planning on building a new house, small new house on that property, which is on Train Hill Road. It also fronts on Averick Road. And he obviously jumped at the chance to sign up for a sewer because he has to do something, and it would be crazy to install a septic system and then all of a sudden a year later have a sewer line come.
Right.
As far as others go, I don't know. I mean, there's some people that have a new system and are sort of happy with that for the moment.
At least one has a 90-year-old system.
Well, yes, one has a very old system. So it's all over the map.
yeah, when the grants come out, Tony, isn't that they usually look at a street and especially like where my street, Glendale Middle Road, there was failed systems, and they usually look for a street with failed systems, and certainly not one or two, but certainly a number of systems that will allow, that they really earmark money for certain areas that have failed systems.
Yeah, I mean, like,
We're actually talking about only one failed system there.
yeah, I don't know how many failed systems, or if he's even failed or been deemed failed, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, like, for instance, when we did our expansion, we did what's called the comprehensive wastewater management plan of the whole town, broke the town down into 12 areas. And the engineering firm kind of microscoped in on the areas that were most densely populated and in much need of sewer, that we could get more bang for our buck from the money spent. I don't know about grants. That wasn't through a grant. It was through an SRF loan. So I don't know how grants work. I've never.
So Paul, going back to Merrill's question, when you first came to us and talked to us about it, we responded that we do have the capacity for your proposal. So in that vein, assuming that you were paying for it, I had no problems with that system.
No, I don't have an issue
So
with
in
that.
other words, if you were doing it, we would certainly endorse it.
Okay.
I mean, to answer Merrill's question, yes.
Yeah, it would have to be, be engineered, a plan presented to us, reviewed.
And it still has to go to the town for approval.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
Okay. Anything else?
And I think if it does go to get built and it gets approved by the board, it's still a permit, has to be filed with DEP. They have to,
Yeah, there's a procedure.
Mass DEP has to look at a plan as well when you're expanding public sewers.
Anything else?
I think we're good. Thank you again for your
Okay.
time and
Thank you.
expertise.
Okay. And with that, we will go. Mike, we'll continue on with the agenda. Tuckerman's Bridge.
Do you want to have John at the bottom there? You got another guy who wants to talk to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes. I didn't know, I thought he was part of the, I don't know John, so I thought he was part of the Everett Road group. Okay. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Thanks. I'm going to say hi to Mike because one of the North County boys here. I haven't seen you in a while, Mike. Good to see you. So we are working for the McKiernans. They have a residence at 21 Interlaken Crossroad. And we originally started out on the project to look at options for a replacement septic system. The lot has a lot of wetlands in the area, so we're looking for other alternatives other than just an on-site septic system. And so we've been working with Tony Campetti in the sense that we've had a couple conversations in a short on-site meeting. Tony's been super helpful, from my perspective to help us quickly outline like what the options are. A lot of the conversation is sort of similar to the last gentleman. I think in some ways we're sort of cutting to the chase based on our experience. I'm a civil engineer. We've done these force mains before. We've designed gravity systems. We've installed them, like you guys were saying, and just our understanding of the price per lineal foot, gravity versus force main. We're kind of thinking that what we have for an alternative here might be to go from the property on the intersection of Interlaken Crossroad and Mackinac and go north to Beechwood, the intersection of Beechwood and Mackinac. There's a manhole there, and try to look at the alternative of potentially putting a force main from her house at 21 Interlaken up to Beechwood. So we're kind of at the front end of this and looking at what is the procedure of gaining approval. Tony's helped to kind of outline some of that. And I do thank you for getting us into the bottom of the agenda so quickly. But, as I understand it, there's some technical details which Tony's kind of gone over. We want to install a main that's large enough to handle whatever houses in the area could attach to it in the future. We would leave corporations at the main for those people to attach. Then the force main will be taken over by the town. And then each house would install their own pump chamber. We're sort of in favor of the force main idea on this one because we think we can directionally drill it. And so we just wanted to chat with you at the Sewer and Water Commission about sort of what's the procedure and like what's the timing, because I think one of the things that Tony brought to my attention was that this force main might have to be approved at town meeting, and that town meeting is in May sometime. So, working back from May, that puts that gives us kind of a tight schedule in some regards. There's a wetland aspect to the project as well. So just wanted to talk to you guys quickly about sort of at this present time, what's the procedure and sort of what might the timing look like to gain approval for this?
So as far as building it, Mike, approving plans and building it, how would that, how A to Z, how would that work?
Well, right. So as far as entering the covenant in order for the town to take over maintenance, it doesn't have to be fully designed to go to town meeting. What would happen is typically if you're, like I said, if it was like I was talking before, if it was a subdevelopment putting in water, sewer, roads, everything, you enter the covenant and take it over. it would be basically worded that the town agrees to take over based on design plans that are approved by the Water and Sewer Commission. And same thing when roads go in, like in a subdevelopment or something, it's based, the road would be built to the town specifications before it would be accepted. So you wouldn't have to worry about having full design for the May meeting. It would just be saying that you would agree to design it to the standards as approved by this committee. And then the town would grant this committee the right to approve it. And once you've approved it, then the town would take it over once it's complete, so.
Probably with some kind of language in it that says like it's a force main that would be around approximately 2,000.
I would keep the town meeting one very generic.
Okay.
As far as it would be accepting the design plans for the sewer extension based on subject to approval by this board.
So the specifics don't have to be in it.
It doesn't have to be. Just like I said, if you were doing a road, you'd say as long as you install the road to the specifications of the town and approval by the highway department. Bam.
Yeah.
So basically it's really open, but it's also the protection for the town is that you guys would have the final approval before it comes forward.
Okay.
I think that's a very, very fair approach, because then, you know, we not only have time to maneuver, right, and get this design done, we're not rushing. And, but then, you know, assuming it's approved, I mean, we can then spend the money to do the engineering and look into this in more detail. So that's a fair approach. And the other thing similar to the last gentleman is that, you know, we haven't begun to do this, but there are other properties along the way that may want to participate in some of this. And so it might take time to, you know, get people together and get everyone on the same page and see who wants to participate and not. So then should we think about coming in before to the Sewer and Water Commission with a preliminary plan with a little more detail first, or should our first stop be to go to town meeting with something, Mike, and we can talk further on that after this and just see like.
Do you think it's necessary for them to come to us?
I really don't think
I don't think it's necessary. If Mike says you just need a generic plan,
You just have to
that's good for us.
More
develop
the concept.
develop the language for the warrant and present that to the town, then work on your drawings. And at the time when you feel they're fit to have us take a look and maybe get some approval on that, then that would be the timing on that. Could be before. I mean, I don't know how fast you work. You could, next week would be fine.
I'm going to work on getting us some generic language around covenants for this, so we just have it.
That'd be,
And that would actually
that's a
come from
good idea.
our lawyers, that this would be the language, and then what we would do is we would just insert the pieces like this is for the following.
That'd be great.
Just understand how it fits together.
And that'll give you time also to talk to other people who are on the line and maybe they want to contribute. So that would even help with the overall expense. So
Yeah, I think it could, and it gives us time to deal with the wetlands issues in the spring and look at, look for property boundary evidence along the road. We pretty much have a route that looks like it's very feasible. I'd also like to talk to some contractors, because if we're directionally drilling it, there's a lot of art that goes into that, procedure, and a lot of it's dependent on what equipment they have and things of that nature. A couple of like more specific questions too. Is there the pavement along Mackinac looks like it's pretty new. Does anyone, you may not know this, but is there a moratorium on saw cutting that pavement if we have to? Because, yeah.
Mike?
I don't know, now, in the other communities I've worked in, unless it's an emergency, typically we don't allow saw cutting 5 years after the blacktopping of a road. I don't know if Stockbridge, I haven't dealt with that yet, because we delayed our projects. I'll have to check into that, whether or not, I don't think I've ever seen, I don't think I've seen any language that Stockbridge has of that.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a detail. And then just, again, for our thinking, for our planning, is there typically any kind of a performance bond or anything that needs to be secured to cover the work along?
That would depend on the cost of the project and exactly the location, location and the rest. So once we get into, that would be a little further along, but there could have to be some.
Okay, well, okay, very good. We'll follow up on that too. And then someone mentioned also when expanding the public sewer, the Mass DEP, obviously the state has an involvement in every aspect of it, but is that something we would need to do, or is that handled by the Sewer and Water Commission? If and when this is taken over?
Question. I'm pretty sure that when they've done other ones, the Mass DEP, that whatever engineering firm, they usually file with the DEP.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. There's another stop and another permit there, so we'll maybe take a look at that as well. Oh, Sarah McKiernan is on. She's the daughter of Betsy McKiernan, who owns the property. And I don't know, Sarah, did you have any comments or questions, things that are on your mind?
I just had one, John, and thank you for giving me that opportunity to ask one. Just want to say hello to the commission members and thanks for having us on your agenda today. I think it's been really helpful to John and to me to understand a little bit more about the process. And I just had a quick question that was triggered by the discussion so far. And that is just whether when the town reviews a covenant that would allow for the town to take over a sewer extension after a certain period of time, is the approval on that a pretty perfunctory process? Is it highly likely that the town would approve that? Or is there are there cases where the town might not approve it? And the reason I'm asking that is just to think about how we might sequence this work and whether it would make sense to do some initial, kind of further scoping of the project and design work associated with the project, or at least the wetlands delineation prior to the town meeting, or whether it would make sense to wait until after that. If there's a high degree of confidence that the town would approve such a covenant because, the commission would be supportive of the extension and it's just, a fairly regular thing for them to do that, then it might make sense for us to try to advance some of that work with John's help before the meeting. But if not, we might want to wait, and make sure that we had that approval. So that's the rationale for the question.
The procedures and permits that you will have to do will be coming across to us anyway. So by the time you get to the point where you're going to be getting final approval, we certainly would be on board with that.
Right, but I guess the question is more whether if we're going to the town with a covenant prior to the design being finalized, is there any reason to think that they might not approve it? Or is that a pretty automatic process that, knowing that, yeah.
I would think, being that it's privately funded, it's not costing the taxpayers anything, and it's going to be an improvement for the town's infrastructure after a year, that I wouldn't think it would not pass.
I don't think there would be an issue. And
it's in the best interest of the town to not have private under public ways anyways. So
yes.
It should, we can never guarantee.
Of course you can. I'm just asking for your best guess.
But I think it's pretty confident that it would be approved.
Okay, that's very helpful for us, I think, just in thinking about how to sequence tasks.
That's good. That's a good question. I think maybe what we can do is we could take this time to prepare for the town meeting. We'll take Mike's lead and the board's lead on whatever covenants review, anything we need to do or provide to you, just let us know. Maybe we can look at talking to the abutters and the neighbors that it may also serve, see if we can build a little critical mass there. There may be some other people that are interested. Who knows? Maybe there's a couple of struggling septic systems and this is the answer to their prayers. So, maybe we could take that time to kind of see if there's interest. And then when we gain town approval, then we can get specific about, delineations and designs. The design's pretty straightforward. We were thinking about using a company like E1. I mean, we've pumped these sorts of distances before, so I don't, in my mind, don't see a big feasibility problem. It's really just a matter of, like you said, Sarah, making sure that, we have permission from the town, approval from the town, and then we can spend the money to do the engineering. And this has been helpful because the pressure we were under is, how do we compress this schedule and get into the town meeting in May, especially when I just assume we'd have to come in with all of our permits in tow, but if that's not the case, that's a big relief, so.
Let me just ask one very additional, very quick question, which is just related to whether it's possible to get information from the town that would help us approach other property owners to know who they are. I know many of them may be summer residents, so figuring out just how to contact folks who may not be year-round residents can be tricky. So just any advice about a particular person in the town who might be able to help us with that, or information.
The
assessors would have most of the information right online on our GIS system. And then if there is somebody that's, there could be a secondary tax bill or something that's being sent out. Between the assessors and the tax collector's office, we can pretty much identify who the contact people are for property.
Yeah, we would get their mailing address, not their phone number, so we could send a letter and then get the discussion going that way,
Okay, great.
I'm good for now. So the next step, should I wait for you and the board, Mike, or should I reach out to you next?
Why don't you send me an email about this? Right on the website, townadministrator@stockbridge-ma.gov.
Okay.
But it's right on our website. Just shoot me an email and we'll begin that discussion.
Sounds good. All right. I appreciate it.
Thank you for moving us up in the agenda too. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Time.
Now we can talk about Tuckerman's.
It's interesting to see on the Zoom, Paul Sundberg, it happened to come up and there's Paul's chair. You see it just now.
Oh, yeah, no, he just signed off.
Don't Paul.
Yeah. He had left a while ago.
The chair was there. All right, we'll keep moving along here. Tuckerman's Bridge, Mike.
Well, Tuckerman's Bridge, we had a call with the engineer and Steve Mack, Mike and I, and there's gonna need to be some work done down there. So we're gonna be waiting. If you wanna, it's gonna be a selectman thing before we can do anything with water.
So definitely the bridge is on its way toward needing a replacement. They did lay out 3 options for us, but I know the select board's already discussed the first option of making temporary repairs and gaining 5 to 10 years. And then it's still having to do the full repairs just seems like a waste of money, and resources. So right now what we're doing is we're looking at the full replacement of the Tuckerman Bridge. So we're looking at what ways can we fund it, how do we get it on? But one of the key things that we've talked about is, unlike other bridges that have closed and sat closed for years, we're trying to get ahead of this one, get ourselves in a position so that we close it for restoration and rebuild, and then we reopen it instead of having somebody like the state come in and close it on us. We would build the design plans to include the water line, which was something they looked at, which they had with the ratings of a new bridge, the water line will be able to go on and the rest, so. But it is something, luckily, we had these reports and the rest before we went and stuck the line on, because I think it's down to 9 tons, the bridge.
Yeah, and putting a new water main on it wasn't gonna change the rating of the bridge in either scenario.
Right.
But it required a lot of big, I mean, I think the minimum one was $1 million or
It was 600 and something thousand plus the engineering, which was another 100, it was close to 800,000 total. And that would have only gained us 5 to 10 years while we can replace the entire bridge for a little over 2 million. So
Way
it's
over
one of
9
those things.
Yeah.
The better long range plan is to do that, put the water line underneath it. I thought that if we did the lesser one, that was just keeping the rating at 9 tons.
Yeah.
And that, but you have a bridge that has been downgraded from 24 tons to 9 over time as the bridge has gotten weaker. So what the state does, they keep lowering those tonnage amounts, and then at some point they're gonna walk in and say, no, you need to close the bridge. So, it just seems like the most prudent thing here is to try to line up everything to replace the bridge, put the water line under the bridge and everything together. So we're gonna go to town meeting for the engineering. We're having the engineers get us a proposal. The engineering, because this is a full bridge over a river, this is beyond even like the Larry Wog and the rest. It's gonna have to be built to full Chapter 85 standards, and it takes about I think they said 8 to 12 months just to get through the review process. So with the anticipation of going for funding the following year for the bridge.
Is that infrastructure, federal infrastructure, possibly?
We are keeping an eye, so obviously I know there was some reference to Build Back Better, that so far hasn't been funded. But there was the original infrastructure bill where money did go to the state, so some things that how the state is gonna put out the money we're gonna see. I know they just released a whole thing on like 136 bridges that are gonna get fixed. Those are Mass DOT owned bridges. So the state's taking care of their own first. But they have put extra money into like the small bridge program and other programs that this bridge doesn't qualify, it doesn't meet the small bridge criteria. But hopefully they're gonna put some funding in like the Mass Works program or something like that.
Okay.
So similar to Larry Wog, we could try to go after, say, $1 million grant to try to cover, half the cost of that bridge. So, but the main thing is right now, getting the engineering done in the next year, getting it done with a plan to replace the deck. Right now, they think that the foundations can be reused. They're historic. That's a real historic piece of that bridge. Other than that, the bridge is pretty much built like any steel truss bridge out there. There's not really unique, but the setting stones of the foundation are. Obviously, they have to do some analysis of the footings, and that's where the project could really increase in cost, is if the footings themselves have to be pulled out and replaced. But right now, they didn't think that, their initial assessment, but that's an initial assessment, so they'll have to do moorings and the rest. He did say that there'd have to be some shielding from the river installed, but that was, I believe, included in their estimate was that they would build some type of sheathing to prevent the downflow stream from hitting the foundation, preventing further scouring. But overall, they said the foundations were in good shape. They did say that even if the bridge had to be lifted due to the 100-year flood levels, if they were to go up a foot or two, what they would do is actually pour on top of the existing foundations pads and you wouldn't even see it. They'd be hidden underneath the bridge, so they could do that. So that's where we stand right now with the Tuckerman. So the good news is we didn't go throw a line on it and then have the bridge closed.
Yeah.
End up with.
So that project's on hold,
It's gonna have to.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
So, yeah.
How about
And we'll work out the details, because right now I know the initial 38,000 came from you guys, so it's gonna cost us 17,000 right now to do the first stage, and we had entered agreement with like, they just do this portion before doing the other things, because of what happened with the bridge, now we need to incorporate all that into a much bigger design than that, and then we'll figure out, the costs and stuff, we'll separate out the water line and the rest, and we'll figure everything out.
Just on a side note, Mike, the Keystone Bridge in Interlaken, is there any movement on that bridge,
Stone Arch.
the Stone Arch Bridge?
That one's gonna come up for discussion actually at the selectmen's meeting probably. I have talked to them, Foresight, about it. They did the initial assessment of the Curtisville Bridge. That bridge is, so right now, any work that we do has to be approved by the Mass Commission, Historical Commission, because the town received a $50,000 planning grant and entered into a deed covenant on it that basically, before we can do any approved work on it, it has to be approved by Mass Historical. my understanding from talking to Steve Mack, their original proposal, they weren't in favor of, and what we can do to try to talk to them and negotiate how to do it. Some things like trying to take the existing stones and setting them into a poured concrete wall to make it look like the wall, but have a full poured.
Sounds good to me.
Are some of the options, but whether or not they're gonna look to that. Problem is, you really can't build a stone arch bridge to chapter 85 standards for a bridge. So, and the only other option would be the possibility of making it just a pedestrian bridge. But that's still a substantial cost, especially if you're talking about trying to build a bridge, a stone arch bridge in the classic way a stone arch bridge was built. There just aren't many people that do it.
I was gonna say, who does that even?
There are more than likely specialized restoration companies, but my understanding it was many times the cost of just a regular bridge, so then it becomes. The bridge itself, I think last time Steve said it had sunk like 2 more inches, the decking or something, so. And we were out there when they were doing the work, the rail system is completely.
The rail system.
shot. The bridge something needs to be decided before the bridge just falls into the stream. And that's really where we're at. So
Okay.
some decisions need to be made more at the selectmen's level. It's gonna be a pedestrian bridge, a full road bridge, and then obviously town meeting would have to also decide funding, so. And that one actually, because of its span, I am having them check to see if it fall within the small bridge program. But the problem with that is the small bridge program will only pay for the bridge to be built. They're not gonna pay for the extras as far as restoration of an old bridge. It would have to be built to that. So, like I said, there's some decisions we need to make.
Okay.
And with it being in that historic where they took that grant, can it be like taken out and a concrete span put in there?
If they were to approve it, and I remember they wanted to do some facade where they used the stones to create the facade of the old bridge, but it wouldn't actually be a stone arch bridge.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. So we'll see, that one, hopefully in the next couple of months, we're making a decision and trying to drive set a direction on that one.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Park Street Pump Station, we know we're out to bid.
Yeah, we're moving forward with that. It's been out to bid for a couple of weeks now at least. And there's a whole host of people that have taken plans. And we had a walkthrough for the subcontractors, or for any contractors, but we only got subcontractors for the walkthrough last week. There was 3 individual companies that were electrical contractors that are interested in it. And there's been a couple addendums put out. So we were supposed to open sub bids tomorrow afternoon, and that's been postponed for a week because of some additions to the plans. So we're on track to open sub bids next week, and general contracting bids on the 24th.
Great. Moving ahead. Stockbridge Bowl Steering, did you have a meeting, Mike, or not?
We have it next, I think it's next week or the week after.
Okay, so between last time, this time, no. Okay. Paul Sundberg, that has been done. Budget, special articles, I know Mike sent me or us, I'm sure, 7, maybe?
Yeah, 7 special articles for water. I don't know if you want, I don't know what you guys, if you want to go over them all or how you want to do it, but.
No, actually, I got some, the only thing I really had an issue with that, clarification on the trailer.
Yeah, so
Because I thought it was the trailer, the box trailer, and the box trailer looks pretty nice.
Oh, yeah, it's very nice.
And I didn't think it was 30 years old, but anyway, but Tony filled me in that it's not that trailer.
Yeah, it's the equipment trailer that we tow the excavator around on. it's 30+ years old and it's time to go and, time to upgrade. And we were looking at getting a whole tilt deck trailer for the new excavator. And water, sewer and general fund, like when we purchased the excavator, we figured that was the way that we kind of should replace the trailer because we use it for other stuff as well. We haul pipe, we haul stuff around with it.
Yeah, it'll be a three department investment.
It was like 20,000-ish. So we just, for budgeting, we 7,000 per department per
I
general
think
fund.
that's the way to go. That's
Yeah,
good.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
And it'll be here long past all of us are here, so.
Yeah.
It'll be yeah.
And the roof in the water plant?
Painting the roof, the panels, believe it or not, the treatment plant is 26, 27 years old now.
Like, which building did we paint?
Water plant. We painted the wastewater.
Wastewater.
Painted twice.
Painted.
Okay.
Painted.
How's that holding up, Tony?
Good.
Looks new, yeah.
And that was
2 years ago.
2 years?
3 years ago.
with epoxy paint
Yeah,
or something?
part epoxy. Yeah.
Even the gutters and stuff, I mean, it looks
Yeah.
like the data did.
Yeah, so when TC was here doing his painting, what did he do for us last year? He was here last year, he gave me a price. And, the panels come with a 20-year warranty and we're 26, 27. I'm like, we should, the wastewater plant roof's been painted twice since I've been working here. So I think it's a good idea for us to, it's a very, very low cost for,
Yeah. I agree.
Yep.
and I budgeted quite a bit more than he said it would be, but with the cost of everything going up, I just figured we might as well add $3,000 or $5,000 in there just to make sure we're good.
And also, there's another thing in there that, is that what you talked about at the last meeting, this thing put in the water line, the turbine
generator.
The turbine generator?
Oh, yeah, that's a feasibility study. Yeah, that's 10,000. And we are,
Any estimate on how many kilowatts you would be?
no, that's what the whole,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
If that works, that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, it would
I think
be,
they'd be-
it would be. The other one is the bathymetry on the lake. GCA gave us a quote on that. Doing the lake and with all that being done, they're gonna do another safe yield just to, we've been through the whole safe yield thing, so we need to have it done. DEP wants us to have that redone, so that's another one. And then we have to put, with DEP, we have to do a 20-year master plan for the water system, which I got a quote from Dave Prickett, the one that designed the pump station on Park Street. And the other DEP, two other DEP things. We have to put a turbidimeter in the treatment plant, which is gonna be I think I put in 15,000 on that. We're gonna try to, we'll do all the work we can do ourselves, but the unit itself is, I think it's $7,000 or $8,000 or something like that. And then it's gotta all get tied into the SCADA, wiring's all gotta get pulled out there. And after 25 years, I was a little frustrated with it, but we talked it out on with DEP, but we have to do it. The other one is, and I talked to Mike about this today, is we have to do a residential backflow ordinance. And I don't know if it has to actually go to town meeting or not, because it's a rule regulation. I think we can just have it as in our rule and regulation.
Like we did with other items.
Yeah, we've done other stuff as well in the rules and regs, and I gotta see, and actually they gave me some sample language for the same thing in Southampton. Did that, and obviously we know who works at Southampton, so I'm gonna contact Sparky tomorrow.
We ever in.
And ask him,
Yeah.
DEP sent me their language for their ordinance, it's a residential ordinance, so, that was part of the report too, we have to do that, so.
And isn't there another thing in there that you said, a staffing issue?
We have to do a succession plan. That's something that, I sent that email the commissioners and selectmen and Mike and me and Tony, we need to, because we're multi-licensed, dually licensed for water and wastewater. They know that we're all kind of leaving at the same time frame, and it takes a lot of schooling and test taking to get the licenses that we have. It's not like you can just go and take any test you want now, like it was when we were getting our training and licenses. You have to take them in a succession, and you have to pass certain tests before you can take the license test, and it's a lot of expense, and they're afraid that because they're seeing, people that are leaving or retiring the water and sewer industry, nobody's applying for the jobs. And if somebody's usually within a town and they're happy and they're doing the water or sewer thing, then they're not gonna leave their job and come to another town with all their licenses already they don't already have them. So that's why they want a succession plan from us for how we're gonna roll in the new employees.
Do they have an idea themselves, the procedure of how to go about that?
I didn't get that kind of a feeling
How would
from
we
them.
essentially
There's
help?
us in Greenfield. Greenfield, Mass is the only other one in the state that does what we do.
Really?
Yeah. And they said that I know Mark, I can't remember his last name, Holly. He's the one that runs the Westfield, or Greenfield systems. And I've talked to him times before. I can give him a call and see if they have to do this.
Yeah, what's their
Same thing.
idea? of what they're gonna-
The other
gonna
thing,
start?
the other thing within that report was the old DeSisto property with we have to have an agreement with, the DeSisto school property with their pumping station and their private water main and the private, we have to be part of the responsible party on that pumping system there.
Did you meet with them?
I met with them today, all on board. I sent them a list of stuff they need.
Patrick too? You met with, he was on board?
Oh, yeah.
Patrick was there?
Yep, yep, super nice guy, everybody. I know a couple of the guys already, but, so they're on board with, going ahead and just starting to replace the equipment and working on the equipment. We had our public works meeting this morning with Mike, and, I mentioned that we're gonna have to obviously get town council involved with writing up an agreement where, his lawyer and the town council can go back and forth and write up an agreement. And I talked to, Great Barrington superintendent, because, Simon's Rock has the same kind of setup, and he's in the same process. As I was like, you got any sample language? He's like, oh, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. They got me too, so.
You can do part of it, he can do it.
Yeah, so I don't know of anybody, I don't know of any other consecutive systems around here, but, I asked for sample language and they didn't really have a response for me, so. At any rate, those are quite a few irons in the fire, and with the SCADA system, another request or requirement from DEP on this, the report was, I have to write up a whole standard operating procedure for running the plant without the automation working.
You've already done it.
How you would, I don't have that part of it, but how you would run the water plant if the brain of the plant wasn't working. So that's I've kind of started on that, kind of jotting notes down. Yeah, well, this is the best time to be able to do it, is in the winter, so. Of course, everything has deadlines. I told DEP they extended, because they only gave us till June 30th to do the turbidimeter. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money in the budget. This has all got to get approved. And they pushed the date to the end of the year, so get money approved, and in July, we can start getting that done. A lot of stuff coming down.
Now, Mike, when you guys have to take a course, is that through the state or is that through an association?
It's through the Division of the Professional Licensure, which is an arm of the state. All the exams are approved, you're taking a state exam. But for the drinking water now, you have to take a prerequisite class. You can't like just go in and take the 2 or the 3. You have to take prerequisite classes, pass the prerequisite class, which is $1,400 to $1,600, then take the test for the 1. Once you pass the 1, you take the prerequisite class for the grade 2, and so on and so forth, and keep spending, you know, it takes time, because those classes are usually during the workday, and they're 2 or 3 days a week. Tell him Marky had to do it for his
Yeah,
distribution.
it was time consuming.
And he was gone 3 days
I
a week.
remember he was gone.
Yeah, Monday or Wednesday,
Wouldn't most
Friday.
people be the first to tap for this whole thing about how many people are being tested now as opposed to
You
6,
can
7
go
years
on and
ago?
look, you can go on and look at the statistics and see how many people failed, how many people passed, and,
So that would sort of give you a basic idea where to
Yeah.
start.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's gonna be, the succession plan is gonna be very interesting, because one of their worries is, I think with wastewater, you can still go in and just take the grade 4 if you want. You don't have to take, it's the water where all these prerequisite classes are. Now, our drinking water treatment plant, is a grade 3. So there's another 3, well, I mean, I don't know how long you can wait to take these. I don't know if you could get 2 tests within a year, but that's where their big concern is like, you know, going to get the grade 2, because you might find a grade 3 operator to come do the waste or do the water, but then they gotta go get their grade 4 wastewater. So if they've never worked in wastewater before, which most people, whether you're usually water or sewer, not both, they've gotta go through all the classes and training.
And do you also have to achieve full status
Yes,
before you're recognized as the actual operator?
it's somebody that doesn't have any.
Just 5 years
It's
in
five.
the field.
Yes, that's the big one.
Wow.
So you can't be a primary operator of distribution or treatment unless you have 5 years' experience and you write to the division of the profession.
After you're licensed.
Right, after you're licensed, and you have to file for a status change and you have to be approved for primary status. Then,
Make you prove it. and-
yeah, you have to write up all it's quite an ordeal. That's why they're worried about it. They asked us when we're retiring. I'm like, well, we're all gonna be gone probably within 2 or 3 years of each other. And the guy was like, whoa, wait, you guys, this is a big deal, so.
So we better be looking at poaching somebody from another town.
Or Peter, you know, we'll give them some incentives, you know, well, you know, we can fatten the pot a little or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, we all need to sit down, put our heads together and kind of think about it. That's why I sent the email the other day.
Yeah.
You know, and we can't even find summer help, let alone, you know, I don't know.
Have we had people apply?
It's just a weird environment right now. We've had people come in different departments and leave. It's really, a lot of people are leaving it in skilled positions that there aren't a lot of replacements. And we're seeing that all over.
It's
there aren't any
across the
apprenticeship-
board, though.
Right, it's across the board.
Oh, yeah.
Even, you know, like town administrators, there was such a gap in people not getting their license, not getting into that field because the same people stayed in it forever. I mean, if you go back 5 years ago, you could almost name every town administrator in Berkshire County. Now you can't because they left, they all retired at the same time. Well, these guys, not just here, across the state, they've been in it so long, no one else new is going in. So now what you have is, now these are gonna open up, but there's been no
Panic time.
people coming up learning, assessors, treasurers, you know, the whole,
Right.
name it, in municipal, there's been this large gap. And now all of a sudden, people aren't going into these fields. We don't have
Yeah, but-
replacements.
Mike, look at the pay rates as well.
Yeah.
I mean, private sector versus municipal worker. I mean,
Right.
there's gotta be something to make it attractive, and it's,
Yeah, it's setting up a lot of competition
Yeah.
in the next probably 5 to 10 years where, it's gonna be, you're just seeing a lot of stealing of the same people.
Yeah.
But once again, like Mike said, it's, you know your plant, you know your rest. You know, to go somewhere else, you don't know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
right? It's.
And we could always take on a younger kid that's gung ho and all that, but can they deal with the stress of the stuff? Cause there's, if the water plant's not running right, or you have a water main break that's 8 feet deep in the middle of State Road, and it's New Year's Eve or whatever, I mean, there's
licensures and then they fail.
right.
You know, they get their first couple of things, but then they can't get past that next stage, and
Yeah.
now you've just spent 3 or 4 years trying to build somebody up. but-
Tony, Markey, and I always say that we don't ever want to have to take them again, because they weren't easy to get, and I'm sure they're not any easier to get now.
No, we always make sure that our training contact hours are up to date with.
So
Yeah,
it's
don't-
just a
don't-
matter of renewing.
Don't do those. When I
No more
graduated
exams for me.
in the sixties, as a teacher, there was a lot of teaching, a lot of people going into the teaching profession. And now you look at it, they can't get teachers. It's just, teachers are just not there.
Can't get police, can't get
No.
water operator, can't get.
They're trying to get even substitutes, retired teachers used to always, be in the substitute thing. They're giving big bucks and they still can't.
We've gotten phone calls from area towns that their distribution water operators have left and they need coverage, and that they're scrambling, trying to find people that come in, per diem type of thing, or be on call.
I recently renewed my CSL. I'm taking a class and I'm looking around. They're all as old or older than I am. And I was like, there's
Oh my
no
God.
there's no young kids in there, and what, it's not a shabby way
Well,
to.
you look at a highway worker, usually if a highway worker gets on board, they're there forever.
Yeah.
Used to be.
That's not true.
It's not anymore.
On board forever.
It's in the construction trades. It's
Shorty Nelson. No, wait a minute, where are you going?
I have somebody staying with my mom until 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay. I thought it was,
Are you gonna be here? Can you?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
I thought it was the other board that you're running.
I thought you were leaving us for the planning board.
No, she's going out the door.
Sorry, but I'll get it on the tape. so.
Okay, thanks for the communication for all this stuff. Appreciate it.
Okay.
See you, Jen. Okay, and with it, Mike or Tony?
Yeah, my budget's pretty straightforward this year. I increased the operating budget by $10,000, as we discussed a couple times, with regards to the new requirements for the permitting, for the new testing for the PFAS and all that. And I had 2 special articles, one being the third split for the trailer, and one being the halfway split for the billing software for water sewer.
All right.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
okay.
forgot to mention
Okay.
that one.
So it's pretty straightforward. Those are 2 special articles. And then I just submitted a future, kind of a future capital project to Mike today, which will needed to be funded for fiscal year 2024, which is the phase 3 to our I&I project.
Okay.
Which is kind of in a holding pattern at the moment, because they're recognizing that we're doing a major improvement to our system with the Park Street pump station. So they're not making us fulfill that requirement in the middle of this.
Beautiful.
So that's off
the
for a
charts
year,
right now.
for a year or so. And, maybe we can find some funding for that, maybe somewhere else, other than us. Maybe we can, Mike's going to be looking into things.
Good.
Yeah, and we're hoping, and we talked about the ARPA funds that the town already is starting to receive. The I&I thing that Tony's gonna have to do, because water and sewer infrastructure stuff is in this. The turbidimeter might be able to get covered. The master plan might be able to get covered. It would we'd have to pay for it out of surplus anyway, but maybe there's the reimbursement thing, or money's already there. Maybe, hopefully it can get figured out before town meeting. Mike's gotta check and see if they fall under the.
They just released in January the final guidance on the use of our funds, and already did 1 class, and I'm taking another class on March 3rd about use and reporting and everything else. So you receive the money up front from the ARPA, but then you have to report how you used it and make sure you hit the categories that are allowed.
This is the money that Lake Drive was referring to. The town received $533,000.
Yeah.
So
I'm
everybody's
surprised we haven't heard from them in a
got
while.
their eyes on it.
They're sitting back.
be able to do $50 million worth of improvements with that money, right?
Well, I don't know. Mike, appreciate you coming. And again, I don't know what the town did years ago without a town administrator, but you're appreciated. And again, thanks for coming this evening.
And thanks for attending the meetings too.
Yes.
That's since and I don't know how long I've been on the board, but that's a rarity that a selectman
Yes.
or
Yep.
administrator would ever come to a monthly meeting, and it's really appreciated.
I'd like to start actually coming more and staying in touch. I know that the three of us with Hugh meet monthly. Actually, we met today. It's our monthly meeting where we just try to make sure we're all on the same page.
I think that's a great thing.
It's
everybody-
great. Yeah, it has been helpful.
And
Very
again, he was doing a wonderful job too. So it really is great. And just a sort of a side note, Patrick is Patrick, but the selectmen, if they have issues with what's going on with us, the selectmen have to make contact.
They'll either come to you or I'll come to you on their behalf.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Appreciate it.
I have one item.
Yes.
So I'm going to do the town report.
All right.
So
It's coming up, isn't it?
yes, could you guys send me some bullet points?
Yep.
And maybe give me a couple of things that maybe you're thinking of for the coming year.
Sure.
But, just, I'll craft something out of whatever you guys give me.
When would you like that by, Pete?
Yeah, when do those town reports have to be in?
I don't remember offhand. Teresa handles that piece.
In March or something?
I'll make sure Teresa lets these guys know tomorrow.
All right,
Okay, so give me, and let's say, for now, I'll just say within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Good reading.
It's hard to remember everything.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
think, you
Oh,
got
yeah.
guys in the trenches, they know their stuff.
You live it, I just come once in a while.
So Peter, you want to make a motion that,
I move that we close the meeting for this month.
so moved?